In 2014, the CDC quietly dropped a report that should have changed everything. They ranked 47 of the world's most nutrient-rich fruits and vegetables using hard science, no trends, no fads, just pure data. Kale didn't even break 50. Spinach came close with 86. Blueberries, the so-called antioxidant king, scored a laughable 11. But one plant stood alone. It scored a perfect 100 out of 100. More iron than spinach. More calcium than milk. More vitamin C than an orange. The most powerful, nutrient-dense food on Earth, according to the US government's own data. And yet, you've probably never even heard of it. You won't find it stacked high in your supermarket. There are no ad campaigns. No celebrity chefs endorsing it. It's not even in your meal kit subscription. The healthiest plant in existence is practically invisible. Why? Not because it's dangerous. Not because it's rare. But because the modern food system, the one feeding billions of people, wasn't built to keep you healthy. It was built for something else entirely. And what happened next, erased the greatest superfood on Earth from our plates, our shelves, and even our memories. But the story of how we lost it, that might be the most eye-opening tale in food history. In June of 2014, a group of scientists at the CDC set out to answer one deceptively simple question. What is the single healthiest food on the planet? Not based on marketing. Not based on trends. Just cold, clinical, measurable science. They analyzed 47 of the most common superfoods, the fruits and vegetables we're told to eat every day. Then they tested how much of every major nutrient each one actually delivers per 100 calories: potassium, protein, fiber, folate, calcium, iron, zinc, every major vitamin. The results? They shattered the food pyramid. Kale, once the queen of the health food aisle, only scored a 49. Spinach, the muscle food of choice for generations, did better with an 86. Even broccoli didn't top the list. And blueberries? The ones you see in every smoothie and antioxidant ad? 11. But one plant blew everything else out of the water. It scored a perfect 100 out of 100. It wasn't an exotic berry from the Amazon or some rare fungus dug from the Himalayas. It was humble. Overlooked. Nearly forgotten. Watercress. A peppery green leaf that grows in cold, shallow streams across the northern hemisphere. No PR team. No Instagram filters. Just raw, unmatched nutritional power. It is, by official government data, the most nutrient-dense food ever tested. And yet, where is it? Why isn't it lining the shelves of every grocery store in America? Why don't we see it in meal plans, health guides, or diet fads? Why does the most powerful food on Earth seem to be hiding? The answer isn't a cover-up. It's something worse, and it started long before the first CDC lab test ever began. You've seen kale. You've seen spinach. You've even seen those overpriced plastic tubs of microgreens. But when was the last time you saw watercress? Go ahead, check your local supermarket. You'll walk past pyramids of shiny apples, shelves stacked with plastic-wrapped lettuce, maybe even aisles dedicated to superfoods flown in from half a world away. But the #1 most nutritious plant on Earth? Nowhere. It's been ghosted. Vanished. Pushed to the margins of the modern food chain. And to understand how that happened, you have to go back, not to the 2000s or the organic food craze, but to the coal-stained streets of Victorian London. Because once upon a time, watercress wasn't rare. It wasn't expensive. It wasn't an exotic garnish you paid $4 for at a farmer's market. It was breakfast. In the 1800s, poor families in London couldn't afford meat. They lived on bread, tea, and whatever scraps they could find. Malnutrition was everywhere. Scurvy ravaged the working class. But there was one thing that kept them going: a bunch of crisp, green leaves called watercress, sold for a single penny by children who roamed the streets at dawn, barefoot, shouting. Fresh creases. Fresh water creases. They weren't selling a trend. They were selling survival. And that single penny bought more nutrition than most of us get in a modern multivitamin. More iron than spinach. More calcium than milk. More vitamin C than an orange. The working class didn't have labs or data, they had results. They saw their children grow stronger. They felt their own energy return. They called it poor man's bread, and they ate it every single morning. So how did we go from street vendors shouting its name, to supermarkets that don't even stock it? That's where the system starts to shift. And what comes next changed food forever. Most of us can't imagine building a train line for a vegetable. But in 19th century England, that's exactly what happened. As demand for watercress soared, a problem emerged. It was fragile. Perishable. It had to be fresh, not wilted, not soggy, not limp. The solution? They didn't just send it by horse cart. They built a railway. 50 miles outside of London, in Hampshire, an entire farming infrastructure rose from the streams, not muddy swamps, but elegant, engineered gravel beds carved into mineral-rich chalk rivers. These weren't just farms, they were aquatic laboratories. The streams had to bubble. The water had to flow, constantly, to keep the plants crisp, sweet, and bursting with nutrients. By 4 a.m., workers were already cutting bunches in the cold mist. By 6 a.m., those bunches were loaded onto the watercress line, a real steam-powered railway, built entirely to rush watercress to London before it wilted. By 8 a.m., that same watercress was being sold in the streets. From stream to sandwich in under 4 hours. That's not farm to table. That's survival engineered at scale. A city fed. A population nourished. An economy powered by a leafy green so vital, entire rail schedules revolved around it. This wasn't luxury. This was infrastructure. A vegetable so loved, so trusted, and so essential, they rerouted trains to keep it alive. But then, the 20th century arrived. The cities grew. The food chain stretched. And everything that made watercress special, began to work against it. That's when a new vegetable showed up. Bland. Durable. Practically immortal. And it came packed in ice. Watercress may have ruled the 1800s. But the 20th century didn't care about nutrition. It cared about logistics. In 1894, a seed company introduced something new, a lettuce so dense, so tightly packed, it didn't look like lettuce at all. It looked like a green cannonball, pale, firm, and shockingly bland. But it had one magic trait: it could survive. Toss it in a crate, bury it in crushed ice, ship it cross-country by rail, and a week later, it would still look exactly the same. Because it traveled under mountains of ice, they called it iceberg. It wasn't a vegetable. It was a product. By the 1950s, refrigeration tech like vacuum cooling made it even stronger. Modified atmosphere packaging gave it a shelf life of up to 28 days. A head of lettuce could be picked in California, trucked to New York, sit in a warehouse for a week, then sit in your fridge for a month, and still crunch. Grocery stores were obsessed. It stacked perfectly. It didn't bruise. It didn't rot. It made money. Meanwhile, watercress. It was dying in the shadows. It wilted in hours. Its hollow stems collapsed without water pressure. Even the best refrigeration couldn't save it for more than 2 or 3 days. To the modern food system, that wasn't fresh, it was a liability. And just like that, the plant that once had a railway of its own, couldn't survive a truck ride. Iceberg didn't beat watercress with nutrition. It beat it with logistics. And that changed what we eat, forever. But what's truly shocking, is just how big that trade-off was. Because the vegetable we replaced watercress with It scored a pathetic 7 out. Meanwhile, Iceberg was thriving. It didn't care about bumpy roads or warehouse delays. It didn't care if it sat in a fridge for a month. It looked fresh. It was Nandopo's tea fresh. It was Nandopo's tea nutritious. But it played the game better. So the food system made a choice. It replaced the number one most nutrient-dense vegetable with one that scored 7. Not 70. Not 17. 7. And that was the moment the war ended. Not with fanfare, but with silence. The green that once fed millions, faded into obscurity, while the one that looked good in a plastic box became a king. When watercress vanished from our diets, we didn't just lose a leafy green. We lost one of nature's most powerful medicines. At the heart of watercress is a rare compound. Phenethyl isothiocyanate, or PETC. Hard to pronounce. Easy to overlook. But in lab studies, it does something extraordinary. It's been shown to suppress the development of cancer cells. Not hype. Not holistic hearsay. Real, peer-reviewed science. It's part of a class of natural chemicals that disarm carcinogens before they can harm your DNA. It's sharp. It's bitter. It's not Instagram-friendly. But it's potent. And iceberg lettuce? It has none of it. No PTC. No antioxidants worth mentioning. The pale inner leaves, the part most people eat, have barely seen sunlight. No chlorophyll. No vitamins. Just crunchy water. But that's what we chose. Because it shipped better. Because it stacked better. Because it looked better. We optimized our food system for durability, not density. For profit margins, not nourishment. And now, we're paying the price. We eat more calories than ever, but we're starving on the inside. Our plates are full, but our cells are empty. Because the bitter, complex compounds our ancestors relied on, they've been bred out. Watercress wasn't just a vegetable. It was a biological arsenal. A leafy green packed with micronutrients and disease-fighting chemistry. We didn't just lose a salad ingredient. We lost a shield. And what's worse, most people don't even know it existed. But some remember. And what they have to say is chilling. The real tragedy isn't that we stopped eating watercress. It's that we forgot why we ever did. The Victorian working class didn't have nutrition charts. They didn't need CDC studies or dietitians. They watched their children go from pale and sickly to strong and alert, just by eating a penny's worth of green leaves each morning. They didn't measure nutrients. They felt them. But in our world, feelings don't count. Only metrics do. We started measuring shelf life. We measured appearance. We measured cost per pound. We optimized for transport, packaging, scalability. And in doing so, we stopped measuring what matters. Nutrition became invisible. Flavor became optional. Depth, complexity, bitterness, all edited out in favor of one word: durability. Our ancestors built trains for watercress. We built warehouses for iceberg. We traded nutrition for neutrality. Power for predictability. Medicine for marketing. Today, most people wouldn't even recognize watercress if it was sitting in their fridge, let alone know how to cook it. And for the few farmers who still grow it, there's only quiet irony. When the CDC released their 2014 study, journalists rushed to interview the last remaining growers. One of them laughed. "We've been telling people this for years. Nobody listened. But maybe now, they will." Watercress was exiled from the produce aisle. Pushed out by supply chains. Forgotten by consumers. Ghosted by a system that valued shelf life over human life. But here's the thing, it's still here. Quiet. Unassuming. Growing in the same cold, wild streams where it always has. You won't find it in plastic clamshells. It doesn't come pre-washed or triple rinsed. It doesn't last a month in the fridge, and it sure doesn't win beauty contests in the grocery store. But it's not gone. A few family farms still grow it the old way, in gravel-bottom streams, fed by mineral-rich aquifers. You might spot it at a farmer's market, rubber-banded into a small bunch, looking a little wilted next to the polished pyramids of iceberg. It'll cost more. It'll fade quickly. But that's the point. Because watercress isn't just food. It's alive. And that vitality, the fragile, fleeting life still pulsing through those green leaves, is what your body has been missing. We optimized our food system for machines. For forklifts. For trucks. For inventory managers and distribution centers. But you are not a truck. You are a living organism, a system of blood and breath and memory. And the best fuel for that system was never supposed to be bland, durable, or plastic-wrapped. It was supposed to be bitter. Bold. Alive. So next time you're in the produce aisle, don't just grab what's convenient. Look past the walls of iceberg and the pyramids of polished apples. Go to the corner. Find the watercress. It might not last long in your fridge. But in your body, it might bring something back you didn't know you'd lost. Our food system was built for shelf space. It was engineered to keep vegetables looking good in warehouses, to survive 1,000-mile journeys in plastic boxes, to stay fresh for weeks without ever nourishing anyone. It wasn't built for humans. It was built for machines. We measured cost. We measured transportability. We measured what could survive in a truck. But we forgot to measure what could help us survive. Watercress didn't disappear because it was weak. It disappeared because it didn't fit the system. Because it was too alive. Too delicate. Too real. And now, most people don't even know it exists. But you do. You're not a barcode. You're not a shipping container. You are not a truck. You are a living, breathing organism with a brain, a gut, a heartbeat, and those parts were built by evolution to run on foods like this. Not because they last in warehouses, but because they help you last. And the most nutrient-dense plant on Earth? The one that scored 100 out of 100? It's still out there, growing quietly, waiting to be remembered. You just have to go looking for it. If this opened your eyes to what's been hidden in plain sight, hit subscribe. Because this isn't the only miracle the modern world buried. The next vault opens soon.